Oi cunts, and welcome to another episode of Vindictive, a series where I explore the varying cancers across the many platforms of the internet. Today's special person for the next 6 or so minutes will be everybody's favorite feminist, Anita Sarkeesian. Header of the channel Feminist Frequency, frequent guest speaker, and woman all gamers fear. I found Anita around the time most begrudged gamers did. Gamergate, 2014. She was many of those capitalizing on the point that video games were making people sexist towards women. But unlike most that partook in that particular shitstorm, she seems to have managed to have stuck around since. I mean, for the first time on this show, do I really need to say why I don't like her? This one's been said 1,000 times, but apparently that's not enough to point out this Fox News in disguise. And if my phrasing confuses you, allow me to elaborate. If you remember not too long ago, a lot of conservative politicians and news outlets went on what most would call a crusade against video games, for being dangerous to children and adults alike, making a supposed point that video games were too violent and people were becoming more violent as a result. This idiocy was mocked by almost anyone who weren't these dipshits. And rightfully so. To think that video games are a direct cause of more violence in society is blatantly absurd. But if it's less pointed at everybody and more a single gender, the oppressed one, then that makes for a valid point. To point out the obvious question this raises, why is it when conservative tards with no knowledge of video games do it and make wildly vast assumptions of how this impacts society, it seems like it's stupidity. But when a feminist makes the same argument through the lens of a feminist, it's seen as something to be considered. It's just a scaled down, repackaged version of something that was just as dumb before. So as I said before, Sarkeesian runs a website and channel called Feminist Frequency, and while I could go on about the grasping at straws some of these videos go through, the blatant evidence that there was no true amount of research and fact-checking, but for the sake of keeping this video short and concise, a few decent examples will suffice. For one, open-world games involving women NPCs. These women are just there to become playthings to players. Their only purpose is to be objectified. What about male NPCs in the game? They're only there to objectify the females in the game. The funny thing is, that's not far from what actually happened in a video she did on Hitman, where in a level where female dancers, or strippers in the level, were seen as being killed in the video. Now, to note upon this, it's a game where you can completely murder a whole room, or sneak around and just take out the one target. Just because the option exists does not imply that the one where you can go out of your way to do something like choke slam a stripper, an action you can do to the cops in the game, the patrons of the club, the bouncers, fucking so on and so forth, does not mean you're going to find that this option is exploited by every single player in the game. It's a fucking option. By the way, Hitman Absolution is absolute shit. This next clip I'll actually play. It's from a video she did on Just Cause 2.
Sometimes areas may go on high alert for a few minutes, during which players have to lay low or hide before the game and its characters forget that you just murdered a sexualized woman in cold blood.
I just don't get it. If you played Just Cause 2, you'd know that the Mile High Club is a one-time area that has strippers on it. The wanted level you see them getting for killing the strippers applies to any killing you do in the game, male, female, and so on. I can't tell if this is stupidity or on purpose. If this is the former, then it's blatantly lying to push an agenda. And she failed to note that in the same exact area where women are objectified, so are the men. I really don't want to say any more here, and these are some light examples. If you want to check and see if this is true, go and watch her series, Tropes vs. Women in Video Games. I'll leave a link in the description so you may go form your own opinion. Another thing Sarkeesian is good at is avoiding critique, whether it be disabling comments, but that's not exactly my point here. While yes, it closes off a main line of communication between her and her audience, it could be done for other reasons. My point here is how childish she can be when handling those who disagree with her points, and this is the reason why she ended up making it on this series. Because recently at VidCon she had a panel called Women Online, where she met face to face with many of those who had disagreed with her, but not exactly on her terms. These people filled the front row, seeing as though they showed up to the panel early. As it goes on, finally she sees who's there. She directs her attention to Sargon of Akkad, an anti-feminist YouTuber who had made many videos about why he didn't like Anita's logic. Now whether you disagree with him, her, or neither, it's how she handled it that matters.
Right? If you Google my name on YouTube, you get shitheads like this dude who are making these dumbass videos that just say the same shit over and over again. And like, I need to give you attention because you're a garbage human. Whatever. whatever, dude.
This reaction was only provoked by Sarkeesian and her knowledge of who Sargon was. This type of outburst makes no sense. Why not initiate conversation? Why not show you're better by leaving it be? Be the better person. Instead, you use childish insults because you were frustrated at someone who was completely allowed to attend and had made no attempt at harassing you other than apparently being there. Now, of course, I'll link Sargon's video in the description and any other perspectives I can find on the occurrence. And the thing is, even though what she did goes against VidCon policy, she was forgiven for this. Now, this short point is just to say, for as much as Anita would like you to believe that she's played video games all her life and she very much loves them, she isn't really a gamer at all. In fact, come to find out, until 2010 or so, she didn't really know much about video games at all. Just, the fuck. It really fucking shows. In summation, I don't think she should be seen as some sort of expert on gaming in general. Sure, she can make her points heard, but this manipulation of perception and blatant warping of facts shows that she only wants to be right, and that she has no intent to learn or hear opposing views, and that's something I simply can't fucking stand. So with that, I say, fuck you, Anita, you lying, arrogant, bullying twat. Well, with all that shit out of the way, I think that'll do it for this episode. As always, I'm open for anything you'd like to add, whether it be points, critique, or just the fact that you hate my fucking guts. Feel free to do that in the comments below. And with that said, later, cunts.
Anything you can do, I can do better. I can do anything better than you.
Oh, you can.
Yes, I can.
Oh, you can.